What's up, everybody? Welcome back. This is day 2 of making sourdough from scratch, including sourdough starter. Awesome reception yesterday on YouTube. Thanks for all the super cool comments and questions. Looking forward to day 2. Unfortunately, day 2 is super boring. So I'm going to talk about a couple different things, but we'll start with there's only one thing you need to do, and that's feed the starter. That's the only thing we're going to do today. And so here's our starter from yesterday. It has been resting on the counter next to some fruit. Want to show the fruit buddy over there? Awesome. This is 50 grams. Oh, that was close. 50 grams of flour and 50 grams of water. It's not super dry, and the fermentation process seems to produce some sort of water. I've never seen starter dry out before. So somebody was asking me about, will it dry out if you leave it uncovered? And I've never seen that happen before. I left mine out for a couple hours with nothing covering it, and then I just rested the lid on top of it. Okay, so yesterday we did 50 grams of flour and 50 grams of water. We're doing the exact same thing today, and that's all. I had a question about measurements. I posted this chart. You don't have to zoom in too much, but this is on the comments from yesterday. If you don't have a super cool scale like this, you should probably get one. But if you don't, there is a reference chart of how many cups to grams is the equivalent.
Where can you find that chart?
On the comments from yesterday, and I'll post it again from today. So, Jesse, got a question for you. What weighs more, a pound of gold or a pound of feathers?
Pound of gold.
Does it?
Well, I'm trying to play along with the joke
It's
here.
a trick question. The answer is a pound of gold is the exact same weight as a pound of feathers. They just have different sizes, right? It was a trick question, sorry, dude. So a gram of water is a much smaller amount than a gram of flour. I think it's roughly half. 50 grams is going to be just a little bit under a half of a cup of flour, and it's going to be, and a half a cup of water is double that. So to get what we need for today, if you don't have a cool scale, you're going to want to add a half a cup of flour and a quarter of a cup of water. Got it? Cool. But we're going to weigh ours. So put it on the scale. Zero it out. We've got our flour. Let's see, this is awesome. Let's see if a half of a cup of flour is 50 grams. It should be 60, but we're gonna go till we get to 50. $53. Oh, that's interesting. So it's a lot more. Well, 60, yeah, there's still way more in here. But that's fine, close enough. It's all we need. Okay, there's 50 grams of flour. And then just like yesterday, warm, not hot to the touch, not crazy hot, but definitely warm. Not super sensitive. And you will go to 106, right, Jess? To get it exactly the same ratio?
Nice.
What does that say?
That's 102.
5, close enough. Okay. Okay, then we are going to dry off our hands a little bit. Kind of just gently, you don't have to go crazy, but you just want to stir it in with the starter from yesterday, so that there's no totally dry flour. See how it almost already looks kind of doughy? And then what we're looking for, another question was, do you have to have fruit? There's natural bacteria in the air. The fruit just accelerates. The fruit has yeast on the skin is what I've read. I've actually never, when we did starter last summer, we didn't do it next to fruit, but I read that that was kind of a pro tip. So that's what we're doing this time. There's, in the next day or two, the signs that the starter is working are a couple different things. You'll see little bubbles, which is awesome sign that it's starting to ferment. And then it'll probably start to smell a little bit weird, but I don't think that happens until day 3 or 4. This doesn't smell, this just smells like flour. So there we go. That should be our 100 grams. Awesome. Putting it over here by the fruit, and I'll cover the lid over it in a little while, but I'm gonna leave it like that for now. Good. That's part 1. That's all you need to do today. I put the other thing that I added, and I'll add it again in the comments, is a picture of what the schedule for the rest of the week will look like. So you can read ahead if you want, you'll get the idea, but you have to follow along with me anyway, because you can't do it. You can't do 2 days in 1 day. So you're gonna have to just be patient. Right, Jake? The other thing, before I talk more about starter, is a reminder. The Dutch oven is super awesome. Because the first half of the baking process that we're going to be on day 7 or 8 is to have the dough covered. That's when it does the oven spring, I think it's called. It keeps the moisture in and it splits open nice and awesomely, and then with the lid off it gets golden brown and baked. So a Dutch oven, or Jake, what's the thing called where it's a pan with another pan on top of it?
No idea.
I think it's called a pan with another, but it's a cast iron, a deep, some sort of heavy cast iron thing that has a lid.
Where did you get your Dutch oven for cheap?
2 of them. Actually, I think I got one on at Target and one on Amazon. I don't think I bought 2 at the same time. I have 2 right now. Okay. I'm from today on, I'm gonna bake fresh bread every morning just to show examples. I've been mailing, I'm mailing Mimi fresh sourdough every day so she can be a part of this. She's super excited. But I wanted to show you what there, because there's also questions about people are feeling overwhelmed about babysitting the starter once it's grown up. And you don't have to do this daily stuff once it's ready. So check this out. Here's our starter. I made extra because I'm making extra bread for Mom. Check this out. Look at that. Those are bubbles. That's what I'm talking about. This is mature starter that was fed yesterday. Isn't that awesome? And so when you feed the starter, basically the starter is, instead of yeast, let me think of the best way to say this. We want enough to use to bake and enough left over that we can feed again. And then you can do that every single day if you want. If you're doing it every single day, you feed the starter every time you separate it for baking. If you're baking once a week, it can go in the fridge. Are you with me, Jess?
Mm-hmm.
So starter that's left out at room temperature has to be fed every single day. Starter that's refrigerated, it slows down the fermentation, as Jake would like to say. It slows down fermentation and it only needs to be fed once a week. So what I do is every Friday morning, this is more complicated than it needs to be. Every Friday morning I take the starter out of the fridge. By Friday afternoon it's at room temperature. Then I weigh out what I'm going to, I weigh out 200 grams. because that's going to be the starter that I save. And what's left over gets used for baking. 200. Oh, perfect. Close enough. I'm going to cover this in a lot more detail in a couple days. Now we have 200 grams of healthy, mature starter. We mix 200 more grams of flour and 200 more of water, and that gives us 600 grams, and that's ready for the next week.
How many does that make a new starter, or does that make dough?
It makes a new starter. Good question. This is the stuff this stuff is what we're going to bake with. 200 grams is our wash, rinse, repeat. That's all we need to keep the starter going, which is I bake 2 loaves at a time, and 600 grams is the perfect amount for just ongoing. You with me? So on day 7, once our starter is grown up, all we're going to do is 200 grams of starter, 200 grams of flour, 200 grams of water, and that's it. Okay? Hang on, let me find my paper, because I think I have another question. Nope, that's all the questions I have. If you have more questions, post them. I'll answer them on Facebook, and I will answer them in tomorrow's session too. If I didn't forget anything, that's it for today. We good? We good, Emma?
Yeah, you're good.
Want to show the crew real quick? Emma? Jacob? Carol? Thanks, everybody. There's Jess. Woohoo! See you tomorrow. Have fun.